True to his word, Uncle Bucko was up bright and early Monday morning at 4 a.m. After a quick stop down at the gas station to get him some coffee, he came back to the shop, where I was still working. I hadn't been to bed yet. Jeremy brought some of his own tools into the shop and got ready to perform surgery to extract the little 355 small block out of my Malibu. I managed to get the hood off of it with Kenny's help earlier last night, and that was quite a relief to Jeremy. That way he didn't have to struggle to get the hood off by himself. We got busy right away getting everything removed off the engine, dropping the headers, getting the bell housing bolts out, labeling everything, and laying out any parts that need to be cleaned into the parts cleaning tank. Now the plan right now is to go ahead and get this engine pulled out of the car and load it in Jeremy's pickup truck so he can meet the buyer later today, because I plan on going in and getting some sleep as soon as we get the engine out of this thing. It was just about sunup by the time we were ready to open the garage door and roll the Malibu back to give us a little bit of room up in front of the car for the cherry picker. Once we had the car rolled back, there was a little bit of fluids we needed to clean up on the floor, and then it was time to bring the cherry picker out and hook it to the engine lift plate and lift the little small block up out of the car. Then we pushed the Malibu out into the driveway to give us a little bit of room to back Jeremy's pickup truck in and set the engine in the bed. Once we had the engine all loaded up, Jeremy pulled the valve covers off, and then he was off to his house, and I went into bed. I managed to get 4 or 5 good hours of sleep, and by the time I got up Monday afternoon, Kenny had loaded up all the mother bottles we needed to get refilled into the 64, and he had power washed the front frame rails and the engine compartment in the Malibu to get it ready to paint. While Kenny's getting the engine compartment ready for the new engine, I jumped in the truck and headed north to go see Uncle Bob at the machine shop. Now between me, Billy, and Tommy, we've got a lot of used small block Chevy parts up there at the shop. And since Billy and Tommy are planning on building brand new 18-degree small blocks for their trucks, that leaves one good block, for sure, left laying at the machine shop, but we haven't looked at it in quite a while. The last time this engine ran was in Tommy's S10 and we heard a piston. It was already 4155 then, but I can't remember whether the cylinder walls are still good or whether it's going to need bored again. Now before I went up to see Bob, I called Terry at Jegs to see if he had any pistons in stock, and the only pistons he could find for the combination that I want to build was a set of Wiseco pistons, and there's only one set left in stock, and they're 4155 bore. So if this block won't clean up at 4155, I'll have to continue my search for a set of pistons. But luckily, all 8 holes are still tight enough to hone one more time and put a 4155 piston in them. So that was a load off my mind, and I felt quite a bit better Tuesday morning when I woke up. And the sunshine helped as well. Tony and Tess are here. They're back from New York, just in time to get a few hours sleep before they have to jump on their flight back to California, and then we leave tomorrow for West Virginia. We leave tomorrow?
I'm very excited. I have a lot of packing to do.
Explain to everybody what you were just telling me about the...
Oh, I walked in the kitchen, and there's like this reddish glow, and I'm like, light's not on, like what? And then I looked out and I was like, whoa, my tree's at peak.
Your tree's at peak?
At peak. Look.
I see it. I see it.
Peak. Peak prettiness.
Just like you.
Oh.
Ow! God! Oh!
Look how my counter was glowing though. It looks like it was...
She's all excited about the colors, but all I can think about is getting out of here. We leave tomorrow.
I know. Yeah. I'm so excited.
Me too.
I have a lot to do though. A lot of packing.
Oh God. I know what this means. Last minute, we'll be running around like a chicken with her head cut off.
And the guy who's giving you the crepe motor, he wants cookies. So I've got to make cookies tonight. So I got to do that. I got to pack. I got to do laundry. We're
supposed to leave at 3 o'clock, and I guarantee by 4, I'll be driving around the Circle Drive blowing the horn, trying to get her out of the house. Anyway, it's time for me to go outside and check on things out in the shop. It seems Kenny Powers has lost another drive shaft. The front one fell out months ago, but this time the back one's out of it, and he has no choice but to fix it this time. So with a new U-joint from Mark and the torches out,
Kenny Powers Carburetor automobile
is finally getting the rear drive shaft fixed. By noon, Kenny and Jeremy had the Jeep back out of the shop, and it was time to push the Malibu inside so that Kenny could paint the frame rails and get the engine compartment cleaned up. And Tony had managed to get a few hours of sleep and came outside to lend a hand. I figured now was a perfect opportunity to ask him how things went up in New York City, visiting Long Island and attempting to get some races in. How was New York?
It's a lot to soak in.
There's a lot to soak into you. Why did I see you chasing a rat?
Well, one of her goals was to see rats. Like, that's like one of the listing things. And we saw one in the subway, but it like wasn't enough. And then we saw one scurry around and go into a planter. So I hopped out of the Suburban. I went over there, I started kicking the planter, trying to get it to come out.
Yeah.
And then it was like being sneaky. Waited till I turned around. So as soon as I turned around, I'm like, get out of the rat. And he fucking... It was funny. And I was like, there it is. Then Billy almost ran over one that was like bigger than your carburetor.
What?
Yeah. We're on the bikes and we're cruising through. And I'm in the back and he's in the front. And I hear this, ah!
What?
Yeah, and he freaked him out because it went across them into like the trash bags because...
It freaked out Billy?
Yeah.
Oh, Billy was the one making that weird noise.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe the rat was screaming.
No, the rat had complete control of the situation. So the rat goes across them and he's seen it and he's like, oh, and he's like pedaling slower and it went into all the trash because that's what they do. They just dump the trash on corners and then they get picked up. Well, then right as Billy was about to go by, it jammed in front of him and almost wheel chalked his tire. He wasn't gonna ride over it. And then he screamed like a little schoolgirl.
Tell me somebody got this on camera.
No.
What?
No one got it.
You guys always freaking miss the best stuff.
We seen the bums. We seen two people fighting. I was in the back and they all were going through. I looked down the street and there's these dudes just fucking beating the shit out of each other up against like a roll-up door. And
sounds like I missed a really good time. Rats, bums, fights. So did you get any races off?
If you call Billy moving 3 feet and exploding everything from the clutch back, a race against Tyler.
That's it?
That's it.
About that time, Uncle Terry showed up from Jegs on his day off. He wanted to see Tony and Tess before they head home, and he was dressed for success. Man, that's a good-looking hat, Uncle Terry.
It is, isn't it?
That's a good-looking hat. Terry picked up some parts that Tony and Tess need to return back to Jegs, but since they have to be at the airport in an hour, they don't really have time to go in there. So Terry's going to take care of it tomorrow when he goes back into work. Once I dropped Tony and Tess off at the airport, I made a trip down south of Lancaster to go see CJ Buckner, a dear friend of mine who we've raced with for quite a while. In fact, we met CJ the first night we ever went street racing, and Billy raced him with his S10. That began a friendly rivalry that turned into much more than just street racing. Back in 2017, Billy and I had been street racing all over Ohio, and the heat was on. Literally. Billy's S10 was well known all over the state of Ohio, and law enforcement began cracking down. So that led Billy and I to start promoting races at one of our local tracks for all the street race cars who were having trouble getting races off because of the police. And back in 2017, there was really 2 small tire cars that stood out above all the rest. The Raggedy Ann Mustang and Billy the Kid's S10, both of which quickly became crowd favorites at these events, mostly due to the fact they were both low budget and relatable to the vast majority of people that came to watch. And that's been the case up until about 4 weeks ago, when the original Raggedy Ann Mustang would make its final pass at Brown County Dragway during War in the Woods. CJ had gone out first round in the regular race, so he bought into the second chance race to try his luck again. As CJ's crew backed him up to the starting line, he purged the nitrous on the Raggedy Ann Mustang for what would be the final time. After leaving the starting line with the front wheels in the air, CJ finds himself in big trouble. The push rod on the master cylinder breaks off, and CJ is now hurtling into the darkness at 130 miles an hour with no brakes. The Mustang impacts a tractor tire, hits a dirt embankment, flips end over end, and comes to a rest in the darkness and briefly catches fire. CJ escapes with hardly a scratch. But the Mustang is completely destroyed. The throttle was pinned wide open when the car landed upside down, and the carburetor sucked in a bunch of mud. CJ would take the car home and later find out that the engine survived, but the rest of the car is almost a total loss. After one of the worst crashes you could possibly ever imagine, the little Mustang saved CJ's life. With the help of friends, family, and a handful of sponsors, CJ has already begun building a replacement for Raggedy Ann. But he still needs a little bit of help here and there, especially with his carburetor. Now, CJ has helped us out many times in the past, and is usually the first person to offer help to anyone who needs it. So when he asked me if I could help him with his carburetor, there was absolutely no way I would say no. Once I got the carburetor removed from the adapter plate and the vast majority of the mud and rocks removed from it, I started taking it apart and found that even the bowl screws were bent. The main throttle shaft is bent, some of the boosters are knocked loose. Really, the only thing salvageable is maybe the bowls and the metering blocks. So for right now, we're just going to document what's in it and go from there with a new carburetor. All right, guys, so as you can see, we got CJ's carburetor all tore apart back here. It looks like just about a total loss. The metering blocks are still good, and that's about it. That's about the only thing that really survived. The bowls maybe, but anyway, we'll get into that once I get back from West Virginia and South Carolina. As I've already mentioned, we're going down to get away for a little vacation. Vicky and I are going to jump in a 64 tomorrow, and we're going to head down to West Virginia, take a little train ride, and then we're going down to South Carolina to pick up a 400 small block, short block for Vicky's 64 C10. I plan on getting started on that as soon as I get home. We've got a lot of work coming up here in the shop, which is good because the weather's starting to go bad. As you can maybe hear, it's raining out here right now. Starting to get cold and nasty. But, you know, we've got the 327 back there we need to get done for the 55 Chevy. We've got the 400 small block towing engine we're going to build for Vicky's 64 C10, and now we're building a new engine for the Malibu. The Malibu engine, what will it be? Obviously, it's going to be a small block, and I kind of wanted to keep it a secret, to be honest with you, what I was planning on doing, but everybody really enjoys following along in what we do here, and I've always given out details before, so it's going to be a 421. And I've reached out to my friends at TrickFlow, and they have a brand new cylinder head, and I'm going to be probably the first one to get a set for a small block Chevy. They're a brand new cylinder head. I can't say too much about them, but they're really, really nice, and an intake manifold that matches the cylinder heads. Iski is already working on a camshaft for me. Nolan Jamora at Iski. I reached out to him yesterday, told him what I'm doing. And yes, we plan on doing some drag and drive type events. I said type. I don't know that it's going to be any of the drag and drive events that are already created, but I'm not really much on a drag and drive where you don't race anybody, when you just go make a pass and they average your passes. That's That's not really my thing, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I would rather do a no prep event, drag and drive, no prep streetcar event. And since there aren't any, maybe I should create one. It's always a possibility. As you saw, my friend Jack Miner at Jack's Wax has got it going on. He had a hellaciously good event out here at Trails the other day. And Jack's been talking to me about maybe getting with him and doing some no prep events next year. I don't know if that's going to happen. I can't promise anything, but it's being discussed. And so that's as much as I can tell you on that. But the Malibu is going to remain a streetcar. It is going to remain a daily driven streetcar. It's going to stay on E85. It is going to stay on nitrous for the foreseeable future. And it's probably going to get a better transmission. It's got a 700 R4 in it. I don't think that's going to live much longer. It's a really well-built 700 R4 by Dion Vickers at Vickers Performance Transmissions. It's held up very, very well. But there's a limit to what a little 700 R4 can stand. And I'm pretty sure a 421 will find it. It will find the limit. So I called Dion yesterday and talked to him about building a 4L80E for the Malibu. That way I can have a trans brake, which I've been missing that because all the index classes that I like to run there, you know, they use trans brakes in them, and foot braking has been difficult. So probably a 4L80E coming. 421 small block. I've reached out to a company in New York called American Racing Headers, and they're building me a brand new set of 1 7/8 primary tube 3.5-inch collector headers, standard small block Chevy bolt flange, that will fit the Malibu and allow me to retain the factory air conditioning box on the firewall. So looking forward to that. They should have those headers out to me in a week or so, and good Lord willing, we'll be putting some pistons down in a block here before long. I've got a brand new Lanati crank, brand new in the box, 400 main for a 421. So I'm going to use this Lanati crank that someone sent Tommy a long time ago. Thank you for that, whoever it was that sent that. I can't remember exactly who that was, but someone sent Tommy a brand new in the box Lanati forged steel crank, and I'm going to use it in the Malibu. Bob's got me a set of brand new connecting rods coming. Uncle Terry's got me a brand new set of pistons coming from Wiseco, and things should start to come together pretty quickly. Like I said, Nolan's working on the cam already. Trickflow's working on the heads and the intake. It should be interesting. I'd like to put it on the dyno up at Bob's if we have time, and see what it makes, and maybe do a little bit of tuning on it. And we're going to try out these brand new ATM carburetors that I've got over here. I've got a 750 and an 850. I'm going to try those out on it, probably do a dyno test with those, and we'll see what we can do. But my plan is to make the Malibu a really, really fast daily driven streetcar for what it is anyway. So that's about it for tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody watching, liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you guys very much. If you don't mind, go over and give CJ a share or a like or a subscription on Raggedy Ann Ohio Small Tire channel. So I'll see you guys on the road, either down in West Virginia or in South Carolina. It's hard to tell where I'll upload from next. Good night, everybody.